Hi everyone, my name's James from Copper Candle and I'm doing a review of Atlux for Unreal Engine. This is a plugin that will allow you to do really advanced and beautiful visualizations within the editor. If you are new to Unreal or your experience of Unreal, this plugin can help you. I am somebody that thinks of myself as fairly experienced with Unreal Engine, and I found loads of uses for Atlux in all of my normal work. I'm very fortunate that they reached out to me and asked if I could do a review for them. Thank you very much for the license, so I could do the testing at Atlux. And I've been blown away by how useful this program could be. So let's dive right in and have a look at what this program is and what you can do with it. So fundamentally, Atlux is a visualizer. It is a way of taking Unreal Engine and making it work like a photo studio. So you can create something that's kind of awesome to take photos with. It gets rid of a lot of the gumph that comes with Unreal that you need to learn to be able to create really nice looking renders. So if you're the sort of person that does a lot of product images or needs to create lots of photos of characters and models or anything at all that has an asset in it, this is a great product because you can very easily get into Unreal Engine and use that full power, the cinematic beauty that Unreal Engine gives you, which has been optimized by the Atlux plugin and allows you to really easily render out all sorts of image sequences and individual images that are very high quality without really needing to know Unreal Engine. So it's perfect for people who just want to get into it straight away. I'm going to have to show you for you to understand. So let's go into some of these features that I really love. So to start off with, number one, my favorite feature, the user interface. I know that sounds really daft because a user interface should be well designed, but they've done some really clever stuff in here. So, we're in just normal Unreal Engine here, okay? This is just an Unreal Engine scene, but I've loaded up their visualizer. I can do that by creating create new level, create new studio level. I click on Photo Studio and it just creates for me a new level. I'm just going to save that one. And there we go, I've got a brand new level, and just like that, I have my whole photo studio that I can use now for creating anything I want, lovely images. This whole interface here is broken down to 4 sections: studio, lighting, sequence, and render. And I'll just take you through a couple of these. In studio, we can choose some pre-built scenes. So just by clicking on these, I can instantly change the whole environment to a new scene that can be used for different photos. It brings in different camera tracks. So here I have this glide, which has a roller coaster track on it, which allows you to move around. I quite like the mist look. It's one I had on a second ago. Really good fun for creating like really dramatic looks because it has this sort of volumetric fog in it. And there's a sample material here, an object, which you can use to start to create your scenes with. So I'm just going to demonstrate a couple of the things in the user interface that I thought were really interesting. I'm going to go back to my standard photo studio because it's got the things in it best to explain. You can see how easy it is, first of all, for me just to click on this user interface and just instantly change things in the scene. And if I bring something into the scene for my content drawer, so for instance, let me go to, where am I? Content. Let's bring in, I've got a nice car that I want to bring in. Got this interactable police car. I'm just going to drag it into the scene. Let it compile a bit. So I'm just going to go into game mode so I get rid of all my little boxes. So first of all, the car doesn't quite fit into the scene. Bit of a pain. So I can just use this global scale factor here to increase the scale of my studio by 2, and suddenly everything pops up and it's much larger. So that's nice and easy. Everything scales proportionally, including the lighting. So a lot of those little fiddly bits that go wrong sometimes when you're trying to manipulate something, or you scale up a light box, or like an area light or a softbox, it can completely mess up your intensity values as well. So it makes it idiot proof in that respect. So anybody could use it. If I scale it back down by 0.5, it should take it back down to the original size. There we go. And of course, if I just click on one of these other scenes, my object stays in there. It's just changing everything directly in front of me. It's very efficient. So that's one thing that makes it really easy. And as I go through the lighting and the sequence settings as well, you'll see that that same characteristic applies across all of the features that you can bring in with Atlux. Next, if I click on a light, now I can just move this around like you would do normally in Unreal. Nothing too challenging about that. If I hit spacebar, it becomes an interactable object. Now I'm just moving the mouse around. I'm not clicking, I'm not using anything else. I'm just able to move this object around based on the position of the mouse. And if I hold down Shift and use the mouse wheel, it makes it bigger. And if I hold down Control, it rotates it. And hold down Alt, that does not do what I thought it was doing. Oh, there we are. If I don't hold anything down, I just wheel the mouse. It goes up and down. You can see it moves it onto a rail on the ceiling, just like a real studio. And of course, you can turn all these lights off in the render, so you don't actually see them. They're just used as light sources. But if it's the look you're going for, look how easy it is to create a nice looking rail light. And of course, that can be animated as well. When you finish a bit, you just click and it place it. And of course, you still have access to all of your normal tools here, like let's get rid of this. So you can move the your intensity manually in here, so increase that, change the temperature, all of that sort of stuff. It still exists, and anything that you're seeing included in the blueprint for that light is also editable in here. So I've got the number of scissor segments, so let's go for 20. So it's increased the number of scissors. So now if I hit spacebar again and I try to bring that down, yeah, you see there's more scissor set elements in it. Difficult to show at this height. Let's bring it down to 4, makes it a bit more obvious. There we go. Add the grid element to it. So it's got a grid on the front now. It's just very, very cool. And of course you've got mesh hidden in render as well, so we can just get rid of that. So that's one thing that's really cool about it. Now that same principle applies also to your camera. So if I select my camera, I can do that in the engine just by hitting tab, and it selects my camera straight away. I mean, I don't know if that's a feature in Unreal, but it should be if it's not. I'm just going to pin this here so it's easy to find. Now the camera is usually represented by a little camera, but I've got it turned off here. Digital SLR mesh hidden in render. So I turned it off because I wanted to get it out of the way. Now, if I hold down spacebar, I can do exactly the same thing again. As I move my mouse around, you see I'm moving my camera around the scene. So I kind of get an idea of looks just by dragging my mouse around a bit. It's not as easy to use as the light, if I'm honest. It sort of jiggles a little bit. But if I hold down Shift and use my mouse, I can change my focal length, which is pretty cool. So to get the camera to be able to move around, I'm going to show you one of my favorite elements, which is this rig rail. Now, if I select my camera here, you see I've actually got a rail in here already. If I press G to turn it on and off with my game view, you can see this rail that's already been created. Just by clicking on this circle button here, it creates a circular track that this camera is now attached to. Now, if I wanted to move this camera somewhere else, let's say I'm going to go back a bit and I want to bring it up, it's staying locked to a target, and I'll come to the targets in a second. But if I click on circular again, it updates that track. It doesn't create a new one, it just updates it. And you can see it's got the right sort of slant so that it stays true to the target. So now that will move, and we'll see that later when we get to sequences. If I move the target around, now the target is an object here, it shows where everything is pointing towards. So it kind of assumes that you've got a central part of this this product. So if I move this around, you see all my lights are following it, which is pretty cool. Look how nicely they move. And you'll notice that the camera has also moved, but the camera rail hasn't. If I update my circle again, select my camera, where's my camera gone? There it is, and hit the circle button, you see the circle now updates, so it stays true to that pivot point. So now something standing in the middle here would now be the focus of that camera. So this is really useful because it makes it so easy to sort out all the things like the depth of field in your camera. It helps you organize, your light intensities, your autofocus, look at tracking. It's all sorted out by this one object. So you don't have to understand all of those parts of Unreal to be able to make nice looking images. Now let's have a quick look at the lighting. This is my third favorite part of the program. The lighting, I mean, I'm a lighting person, so for me this is the most exciting part of Unreal generally, because it just looks so beautiful. And you can see already some of the beautiful looks we've created. Now, the lights I've shown you already are incredibly dynamic, and they can be controlled just by using very simple editor interfaces. But we can create our own. So I'm going to click and drag in a ring light here, and you can see that this is just a normal ring light that you might use for lighting a person. So we'll come back to that in a bit. And I can change this here to any other type of light that has been created by the Atlux library. So I have here a light wand, which is kind of pretty. I can change the color of it. So you saw these at the beginning, and it should update the color. There you are, the source. I could make it a softbox. They've got different size softboxes. Soft light. And then, of course, I can change the intensity of it as well. Now, you'll notice this interesting rendering that's going on. This is Unreal, not Atlux. This is how ray tracing handles things. It takes a little while for it to process the rays. Now, my fourth favorite part of the Atlux program is the ability to switch your rendering tools. Now, I don't know about you, but when I'm using Unreal, I find going to the project settings and trying to make sure that I've got everything set up for either ray tracing or lumen or path tracing very fiddly, because there's so many different checkboxes, and you have to make sure you've done your post-process volumes correctly, you have to done your project settings correctly. In Atlux, they've given you this really simple set of tools. What I'd probably prefer to see is just 3 separate buttons, but it's set up this way. At the moment, it's set for ray tracing. So if I'm moving this from ray tracing to lumen, you'll notice the entire scene will change. Now, I've never been able to just switch an entire scene from ray tracing to lumen like this. This was the first time I ever really got to understand the difference. So you might find this interesting. So I'm just going to go into game mode so you can see it really clearly and flip from ray tracing to lumen. And there we go. So now we're running in lumen, which is obviously Unreal's much more advanced rendering tool. And you can see all that flickering has gone now, and we've got actually a smoother experience. So I can tell you that my camera's moving around a lot more smoothly, and better reflections. Now, of course, we can go a step beyond that as well. So I'm just going to come down here to this police car. So I've got some nice reflections there coming off the softbox. Path tracing. Now, path tracing traditionally is quite difficult to get to work. It's a very high-end rendering processing tool, because it's calculating so many bounces of light, much more than ray tracing does, which does it in real time. However, it does actually go through a render process. It's like a GPU renderer. If anyone's ever used Octane Render, for instance, or some of the V-Ray tools at the GPU rendering, you might find this familiar, where it creates like the noisy pixels. And you can see this little progress bar at the bottom that's just going across. That's a console variable that you can turn on if you have never seen it before. But they've already got it prepared for you in the Atlux. Just another thing Atlux does out the box. It just gets it ready for you. And I will leave that to render, and then you can compare all 3 at once. And there we go with the path tracing version of the render. Look how gorgeous that is. Path tracing does a lot more work on reflections, particularly with glass and reflective materials. So let's just unpin this camera so we can see in editor properly. This doesn't show you in the camera view the differences between all the lighting settings until you get to the point of rendering it. So here we can see path tracing. If I turn that off, we can see lumen, and I'll swap that from lumen to ray tracing, and then back to path tracing again. How interesting is that you can see all 3 different views straight away? And the path tracing rendering is staying. Until I move the camera, it just stays. And you can see the difference in reflection in the glass. Just see here, like on the edge of the glass here, it's not able to show you quite as realistically how all of that light is bouncing off the edge of the glass. And if I go back to the lumen version, same thing there. It's not showing you reflections on the glass. That's where path tracing is just a much better quality rendering tool, but you have to be prepared to sit there and watch it render. And with this tool, we have all those options easily available to us. You don't actually need to have to understand all of that with Atlux to understand how Unreal will handle it. Let me demonstrate. If I go into my render settings, I have very simply quick, real, and production for choosing the render quality, and it will do all this for me. Now, there are all of the normal settings that you would find in your movie render queue options, so you can choose the outputs that you want to use. So I've got PNGs and EXRs set here. You can change your quality settings manually. So low, medium, and high are effectively quick, real, and production. In fact, no, production I think might be ultra. But you've also got this apex. Now, I've been warned not to use this unless you're on a really super powerful computer. And this is my, where am I up to? Fifth favorite part of Atlux, because these settings mean you don't need to understand the render controls. Rendering in Unreal is a bit of a black art. I mean, you can get something really beautiful straight away. Granted, it's a very, very good program for that. But consistently getting it right takes a lot of practice. And a number of times I've spent, fiddling around with, let's down here, what we got, all of the anti-aliasing and the warm-up count and the motion blur, and here you got a couple of things like this is a lovely feature. This in path tracing, sometimes Unreal has a little bug where it creates a single pixel of black line around the outside as a border, and here they've got a fix for it. It's just a tick box. We don't have to worry about how it's done. Normally that would be a pain to try to sort out, but here they've just given you a tick box where you can just fix that for yourself. You can choose path tracing renderer instead of the base renderer, and that will then give you the image that we're looking at the moment. But quite simply, if I just change from quick to real to production, it just updates all the settings for me. It just thinks about delivering it. I hit shoot and it saves it into my editor. Now the only thing that's got a little error message because it's telling me that there's a compile error on one of my blueprints, which is something that I'd have to sort out in my own work. And with that in mind, something else that you can do that's pretty cool is how you can manage sequences. So the ability to just use a preset to build something is a feature Atlux has across its entire system. So we've seen that in the studio settings where you can just build a light box and all the camera systems as a pre-configured setup. You've got your lighting set up, so you can just set up all of your lights as a pre-configured system. And you can do the same thing with your sequences. We don't need to worry about how to build a sequence if you've never done it before. So if I was building a sequence, I come up here, I'd add a level sequence, I'd have to create a whole new thing, which is very frustrating to build for the first time if you're not used to building one. But for a Atlux sequencer, we just come down here and say we want to create a new sequence. It's going to have 150 frames. We can choose how many frames we want. We give it a name. I'm not choosing anything. If we don't give it a folder name, it's fine. It will just put it somewhere as a default location in the Atlux folder. The length of the rail that is going to be used on the so this is all the rig rail presets. Ignore that. So once we've got our level sequence sort of set up, it's a very simple way we're going to do it. We just do prepare level sequence. It just creates it for you, and it adds everything into the scene that's relevant. So I've got quite a few rig rails because I kept clicking on it. I've got my camera, and because I chose single frame, it's just given me a single frame worth of sequencer. If I decide to change this to 50 frames and 24 frames a second, for instance, and I might say don't add the rails. And let's change, no, that's fine, that's enough. So then I'll just do prepare level sequence. It just updates it for me. And it's got rid of all the other rails. I mean, that's so useful, isn't it? So if I had loads of cameras and lights and they were all included in the level sequence, they would all be updated as well very easily. So let's change this to render a sequence. And now you'll see if I wanted to render this out, this would be my sequence, but nothing's really moving because the camera I've chosen doesn't move. So let's go back into our studio and choose, which one should we choose? Glide, which has the roller coaster camera. So there we go. We've got a new camera position. Let's update our sequence. We're going to make it back to 150 frames again. Pair level sequence. So just like that, we've managed to create a whole new look, a whole new scene. Let's move that camera around again. Let's put it sort of closer to the start point and run the sequence. Whee! Looking pretty good. Right, now I want to, oh no, I've moved it now. I want to do that again, but this time I want to keep the rail, but I want to change the lights and the studio environment. So this time I can come down here, I can just turn off all my updates. So the only thing I'm updating is the backdrop and the lights. And then I can go back into my studio and I can change this to the mist, and it's kept everything else. So it's, again, so easy just to change things and not mess it all up. And there we go. Look, we've got that really cool look there with the camera moving around. And if I like it, I can save it. I can create a custom template for it, which I can save. So I've got loads in here that have already been created, but I can just create my own preset position. So let's call it James Atlux. Save it, and there it is. There's now a pre-saved setting that I can use for another time. Now I don't know why this is happening, but I want to share with you something really cool that happened by accident. I found if I cancel a render halfway through running a sequence, my computer crashed. Well, Unreal crashed. Sure, it's something to do with Atlux, probably my computer, but when I restarted the editor, all of the settings in Atlux were still there. Now, this is my favorite and final tip. My favorite thing about this product. It's probably something they don't even realize is such a useful thing for some of us, but having the ability to go back to where you were when something crashes is so useful, because you never really think about where all those settings are that may change. Now, there's another thing that I want to demonstrate, which is just part of what makes Atlux really useful. I'm going to get rid of my police car now, and instead I'm going to bring in the character that you saw right at the beginning, the Revenant from the Paragon collection. The reason I'm doing this is because it comes in with animation already built into it. So this is quite a nice test for how Atlux can perform with more game characters and more game assets. If I run a render now, this character will render into the scene. Now I need to get rid of my little sample here. Don't need that anymore. And rendering this out will create a nice image sequence of this chap moving. But let me just show you how I'm going to set this up a little bit better. So I'm going to get another light. I want to put in a ring light over here, and I'm just going to press spacebar so I can move it around. Oh, I would have done it. There we go. And actually, I don't want it to be a ring light. I might make it another light wand like the others, and reduce its intensity slightly. Just so there's a little bit more of a glow. Find that a little bit sensitive. Let me just type it in. There we go. So now the light's picking up on him a little bit more. He's quite a cool character, isn't he? Okay, so hopefully we'll see the camera go around and render this. Now I just want to make a couple more changes. I want to render this out as an EXR, so I get all my render layers. Motion blur is already included, and I'm going to add a transparent background. So I'm going to hit shoot, and it will render out my image sequence. Make sure I've got that. I'm going to do it in quick sequence. There we go, and shoot. Okay, so if I bring this up on another screen, you can see the finished output, and you'll see that it is it's a pretty wicked looking shot. I didn't have to do any work, no cameras, no building my own rig rails. I just used all the features that are already in Atlux. So if I have character animations I want to demonstrate, or lots of different things that I want to test out, or to make nice product images or product videos of, it's so easy just to chuck them into the environment and start running these out. So there's just one more thing I want to show you, because at this point you may be asking, what is the difference between me using Unreal Engine and me using Unreal Engine with Atlux, particularly when you have to pay for Atlux? And for many people, if you're working in a studio, you might be having to pay for Unreal Engine now as well under the new pricing scheme. Well, for me, there is a simple answer to that, and I need to demonstrate to you one of the features that it has. The answer really is that this is a much more convenient way of batch processing lots of product images. Now, if I just had one character that I wanted to do a rendering of, I'd probably just put a camera and a a light source into a sequence that I've already built, and then render it out. That is completely justified in most situations. However, if you've got lots and lots to do, let's say you're doing a whole library of props, or maybe you're doing product images for a big brand. A lot of them now are generated in photorealistic CGI. Kitchen companies, bathroom products, whatever it is, they're not actually real. They're rendered in photo studios online, systems like this. So Atlux means that you could get straight into the power of Unreal without needing to know Unreal itself. And the best tool for that is this thing down here called Use Batch. This is such a useful tool. Let me demonstrate. I'm going to delete out my Revenant character now that we've seen him. And let's get rid of the 3D sample as well. I'm going to come down to, actually, first of all, I'm going to load up the Lightbox, which is slightly smaller, a bit more useful for products. If you're doing a lot of product demo, and we'll delete out the sample. And it comes with a turntable, so you can set the turntable to do like a nice turn automatically, or to do a little float, which is quite a nice look. It also has a MetaHuman setting as well, which is just worth noting for nice MetaHuman setups. If I go into my render settings, I have down here a thing called Stager as part of the batch packaging. Add from content browser, I can also, I've got to open up my content browser. I can then select the object I want to bring in. Now, I think I can only do static meshes. So if I bring in my Revenant again, I can go add from content browser, and he's been added in here as a batch item. And if I selected a whole load of them, so let's just go back. I'm going to go to my industry props, meshes. I've got a whole load of props here. I'm going to select all of these, add from content browser, and it's going to add them all into my batch processing tool. Okay, all of those are now set up. I'm going to go to a single shot. I'm going to leave it on quick just for the benefit of this, and make sure that use batch is applied. Okay, so that is the key one here, is that it's going to create an image for every single one of these based on this setup. So we've got the camera target, that's where the object's going to appear, that's where the camera's set up to look. I haven't seen any of these in real life. I just brought the 3D object straight in. I haven't even tested this before I made the video, so who knows what's going to happen. I've got it set to make a PNG and an EXR. Let's go for it. Shoot. Now, you can't see this because it's rendering on a different screen, but it's now going through and rendering all of those images, 30 images, one after the other. So you could just bring in 30 different products, and it would very quickly create for you all 30 images. You just walk away. I mean, setting that up took all of about 10 seconds, and now I'll just leave it running while I go make myself a cup of tea. Now, the objects I can see in my screen, and I'll show you in a second, they are slightly too big for the photo studio. I probably should have positioned the camera, but it just demonstrates how very flexible and versatile this tool is to be able to do loads and loads of really good product photos. So that's the end of my review of Atlux for Unreal Engine. It isn't meant to be a training video, it is my review of a program to try to give you an idea of exactly what it is and how you'd use it. The thing you probably want to know right now, though, is how much is it if you haven't already gone and Googled it. So it is $349 for a permanent license, it's yours to keep forever, or $29.50 a month for people who want to just take it on for a little while, just to help you out with one single project. But the great news is that because you watch this video all the way to the end, you get access to the discount code that's been provided by Atlux. So congratulations to all of you. You get to have a discounted version of the full commercial license. So check out in the description the discount code and where to go and get it. So whatever industry you are working in, whether you are novice to Unreal Engine or you're experienced with Unreal Engine, there is a place for Atlux for you in your workflow. As somebody that uses Unreal all the time, I like the idea that I've now got this license. Thank you very much, Atlux. Looking forward to trying it out more and more. I'm going to have it just loaded up whenever I need to create some renders. I'm always creating little animations and sequences, but putting all of the the gubbins around the thing that I'm making is the bit that takes so long, and actually it's not always the bit I'm interested in. I want to just get the looks out as quickly as possible. So I'm building animations of characters, I'm visualizing products, I'm building scenery or designing environments, and I want to just get some renders out to show to a client. I'll load up Atlux from now on, hit that render button, and just start creating some really good looks without having to really think too hard about what bits need to go where and how I move them around and whether or not the camera is actually focused correctly on my scene. Atlux has taken care of all that for me. And if you're new to Unreal, then Atlux is a great way to be introduced to it. You don't have to think about how to learn sequences or rendering tools or the movie render queue, all of which are like subjects on their own. Atlux just makes it easy with a few buttons that you can click. But you can start to get into some of the more advanced parts of Unreal around the side of it. But for a lot of the time when I'm teaching people how to use Unreal, the stuff I normally spend a long time showing them, you don't need to know, because Atlux will just get you there straight away. So have fun with it. Please have a look at it in a bit more detail. Go and visit their website, see all the different use cases they have from other industries, and get as excited about it as I am.